Castlevania Nocturne Season 2 was all about moving past one's trauma and exhibiting the true strength of the human spirit. Richter, Maria, and Annette all went through their each individual awakening. Juste Belmont rediscovered his purpose in life, and for the first time in 3 centuries, Alucard has decided to stay in one place and fight for a greater cause. After a very long time, our main characters have hope, so it's only fitting that the next season shatter those hopes and restart the cycle of violence and bloodshed to conclude the Castlevania cinematic universe. Though we don't know exactly how their stories are going to end, in this video, we're going to be doing our best to make some educated guesses for the same. So, without further ado, this is the fate of every character after Castlevania Nocturne Season 2. Before we get too deep into it though, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. It's a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Richter Belmont. Richter Belmont seems to be in a good place, having defeated Elizabeth Bathory alongside the woman that he loves. He seems to be starting a new chapter of his life by moving with Annette to Haiti, participate in the Revolutionary War going on there, and it feels like it'll be a long time before he's reunited with his old friends. While the creators of Netflix's Castlevania did confirm that the series was going to get a time jump when it returned, if it goes in the direction we're predicting, then that jump will last about 5 years. That's because Nocturne so far has covered the events of Rondo of Blood through the lens of Castlevania Bloodlines, and up next is the most anticipated storyline of the '97 classic Symphony of Night. Set 5 years after Richter's first great victory against a vampire, in it, he himself becomes the lord of Dracula's castle and tries resurrecting the guy for the sake of an eternal battle that couldn't be sullied. To be fair to him, Richter does it under the influence of an evil magician, but he himself admits that his Belmont blood and obsession with glory through killing vampires played a role in it as well. And that trait of his personality has been carried over into the show as well, seeing as he promised Olrox he would kill him one day, despite the fact that the Aztec vampire helped him defeat Elizabeth. If Netflix does decide to give us what we want, then Richter's happiness is going to be short-lived, because Buddy is about to be brainwashed like another character we're going to touch on later in this video. And it'll be bad enough to make him quit vampire hunting as a profession, much like Juste at the beginning of Nocturne. He's going to the new world to find a new life, but he'll never be free from his old one because he's a Belmont, and he'll learn that, to his misery, in the next season of Nocturne. Alucard. If Richter can't get rid of his Belmont bloodline, then how does that make him better than Alucard? Well, we suppose that distinction won't matter once these old friends end up facing one another, because that's where this story seems to be going. The protagonist of Symphony of Night is Alucard, not a Belmont, and if the whole Richter goes rogue storyline does end up being adapted, then Dracula's son might have to abandon his new way of life temporarily just when he's found it. At the end of Season 2, Alucard was inspired by the unyielding spirit of the French revolutionaries, and he decided that he was going to stay and fight alongside them. Assisting him in the task would be Maria and Juste, but he's already known that his real purpose in life is to keep killing his own kind. He was tracking Elizabeth Bathory long before she came to France and turned into Sekhmet, and during his travels across the world, Alucard had destroyed more vampires than he'd care to recollect. This is already quite different from his game counterpart, whose sole focus is to fight and defeat his father every time he resurfaces, hoping to one day end his existence permanently. Dracula's character arc has already been concluded in the first Castlevania show, so we don't think he'll be the big bad of the spin-off series, but the thing is, the identity of the actual big bad doesn't really matter as much, because they'll all be getting Alucard's sword through their hearts. Based on how Season 2 ended, we think it's safe to say that the main antagonist role is going to be fulfilled by Old Man Coyote, and he should certainly have the power to put Richter under his spell. Alucard might just be forced to fight his friend while trying to reconcile his love for another, because Symphony of Night pretty much ends with Alucard and Maria becoming a couple. If that is the direction the anime decides to take, and it just might, given their complementary personalities and pasts, then it will be even more difficult for him to stand up to Richter. But he is Adrian Tepes, son of Dracula, and no matter how much he hates his dad's legacy, he can still live up to it. Expect Alucard to become the main focus of any kind of continuation with the Nocturne characters, because in a world that keeps changing, he's the only constant that stands as a wall against the tide of vampires afflicting the world. Mizrak. Mizrak is an interesting character because he was a man of faith in service of devilish powers. He professed his love for God loudly and proudly, but then he engaged in sodomy and allowed men of the cloth to perish in service of evil. He definitely reclaimed himself a little by acting as Maria's guardian in Season 2, but the defining aspect of his character is his relationship with Olrox. Mizrak is clearly in love with Olrox, but he can't bring himself to say it because it means that he loves a fiend. He tries many times to get the Aztec vampire to leave him, but he doesn't, and in the end, Mizrak is glad. That's because Old Man Coyote comes to claim his soul for the many evil deeds of his life, and he realizes he doesn't want to die. Season 2 ends with Mizrak becoming a vampire because Olrox decides to grant his wish, and while we're glad to see him survive, we're also curious to see where he takes things from here. Mizrak is an original character created solely for the anime, so we have no frame of reference for his future actions, but we can say this: he's going to have trouble adjusting to his new reality and forgiving Olrox if he retains anything of his human personality. Mizrak only obeyed the abbot's commands because he truly believed he was working for God by dealing with demons. When the devil himself came for his soul, he realized what a fool he'd been and finally gave in to his true emotions. Now, he'll probably argue with Olrox even more, but also defend him just as fiercely, seeing as their love at least is a real thing. It'll be downright tragic if Richter, Maria, Alucard, or any of the others have to be the ones to take him out, because killing vampires is one thing, but killing former allies is an entirely different ballgame. Mizrak will serve as a personification of the struggle that is the human conscience, and we can't wait to see his initial and final reactions. Olrox. Where Mizrak is probably going to be confused about things next season, Olrox will have nothing but clarity. This is because he's the one who identifies Old Man Coyote as the puppet master of these vampire attacks, and he's now willing to do whatever it takes to defeat him. He's already saved Mizrak from his clutches, so you might think that he's done with all that business and has no desire to kill the Belmont kid, but Richter promised him he'd kill him, and he's a guy who keeps his promises. Olrox might even shed a tear when they inevitably cross paths again, because he seems to have grown fond of the Belmont crew. But he's the only man with knowledge about Old Man Coyote, as well as that mysterious book that we kept seeing in Nocturne. This book might just be the Grimoire of Souls, and if it is that, then we have a much bigger problem on our hands than Richter getting possessed. The Grimoire is basically the Necronomicon, the Darkhold, the book of evil magic in all the universe. Its contents create a bizarre, time-bending set of circumstances in the mobile games Harmony of Despair and Grimoire of Souls, but it looks like in Nocturne, it's being used as the basis for all evil spells and rituals. Olrox being aware of the coyote and being a literal Aztec dragon is going to be extremely important to the story going forward, because his power will be needed to battle Satan. In Symphony of Night, Olrox is just the final mini-boss you need to beat before you get to Dracula. His character is fleshed out in the 2008 novel Demon Castle Dracula, where he's trying to recreate Dracula's castle and conquer humans and chaos so he can free the former from the influence of the latter. Olrox might be a vampire, but he's an intellectual first, and he knows that no one can truly be free to live as they pleased as long as otherworldly forces kept trying to manipulate them. He will most likely try to take a stand against said manipulation, but Richter's revenge will throw a wrench into the works, and if we're right about his possession, getting that wrench out won't be a piece of cake. Tera. If Netflix was going to be completely faithful to game canon, we wouldn't see Tera for more than a scene, because in Rondo of Blood, she was just a nun that was saved by Richter and Maria at just the right time. She bestowed God's blessing upon them, and while that did help them in-game, in the series, she's done a lot more than that. Tera practically raised Richter and Maria to be siblings. She's one of the most powerful speaker sorceresses in existence, and now she's a vampire who's seemingly under the influence of Old Man Coyote. At the end of Season 2, we saw her overseeing the execution of Louis the Last with a chilling smile on her face and the coyotes smiling in the background, which suggests to us that they're just getting started. If there's anyone who can convince Richter to let his guard down long enough for his mind to get warped with magic, it's Tera. And you can expect her to be involved in his symphony-based disappearance 100%. She's already goaded her daughter into killing the abbot under the coyote's influence, and Tera is most likely just getting started. She will become a painful reminder of why all vampires need to be wiped out of existence, even the good ones, because they are, by nature, evil. At this point, even Maria has accepted the fact that she might have to kill her mother, if that's what it takes to eradicate vampire kind, and we can't imagine that confrontation going down smoothly. Tera will definitely return with a bunch of new power-ups that will make our protagonist's head spin, and you can also expect her to pretty much become the Saint Germain of Nocturne. Whether her fate ends up as tragic as his is a question we wish we had the answers to for you. Maria Renar. Maria had perhaps the most turbulent journey out of all the main characters in Season 2 because, well, she killed her dad out of rage. Maria has always been a strong-willed woman, but taking the life of a parent, especially at the other parent's behest, is bound to change you somehow. And Maria has become a lot quieter and more distant ever since. She ended Season 2 by saying goodbye to the only person from her life from before the Elizabeth incident, and that kind of thing tends to take its toll. Luckily for her, she has the antidotes right beside her, flanking her on either side. Juste Belmont is going to do whatever it takes to protect Maria, and Alucard has agreed to assist with the revolution, but we think it will be the former that actually ends up saving her. Maria and Alucard have already shared some rather intimate details about their lives with one another, including the fact that they've both killed their respective fathers. This is already a lot more basis to create a relationship out of than Symphony of Night, which was where Maria met Alucard for the first time. At the end of that game, the son of Dracula goes off by himself, as was his custom, but Maria chases after time because she's fallen for him and wants him to stay. Alucard agrees, and for a few years they live together. In the games, he's a lot more distant from his own emotions, so it takes Maria a long time to get him out of his shell, but after an encounter with the incubus Magnus in Nocturne of Recollection, the couple becomes stronger and a lot more open with one another. Maria accepts Alucard despite his evil past and the fact that he needs blood to stay alive, and he shows emotion towards a woman that he actually really cares for. The topic of Alucard not dating came up in Season 2, which makes us think that this romance has as much of a chance as the Richter and Annette romance did, but Maria has baggage that she didn't have in the games, and she'll have to work through that as well. We think that her role going forward will be similar to what she does in Symphony, which is track down Richter with Alucard, but her unresolved feelings over her mom becoming a vampire and the fact that her powers seem to be connected to hell needs to be addressed first. We're hoping that Alucard's emotional intelligence, which is higher in the show than it is in the games, can somehow help her out, and vice versa, because if there's anybody who deserves to be happy, it's Maria, especially after everything she's been through.
Let's go home.
Annette. Out of every character that received a power upgrade in the anime, Annette is probably the one that got the most, because she went from being Richter's abducted girlfriend in the games to Richter's girlfriend who can prevent his abduction in the series. Annette has realized the full scope of her ability to commune with her ancestors, which has given her the power to talk to and channel the power of gods from various cultures. In Season 2, it was Sekhmet, the Egyptian goddess that Elizabeth was trying to imitate, and to be honest with you guys, without Annette, we have no idea if Richter could have won that fight. They've ridden off into the moonlight to go back and fight the good fight in her homeland, but you have to remember that the spiritual possession works both ways. Annette had to convince Sekhmet to take over her body while she held off the devourer of souls in the dust. That ability goes both ways, and if she accesses the wrong kind of spirit world, she might end up getting possessed by the wrong kind of deity. Throughout Season 2, Annette kept seeing this vision of a three-headed spirit with horns and red faces. This might be the Yoruba deity Ishu, who is the equivalent of Old Man Coyote. If all divine tropes overlap in Castlevania's spirit world, then the coyote can find its way into Richter's camp through his friggin' girlfriend. Or it could end up turning her against him because in Grimoire of Souls, Annette's body ends up becoming a host for Carmilla's soul, and Richter has to defeat his own girlfriend to save her life. Considering the fact that Annette was a minor character in the game canon and had zero access to the divine except for when she fell under the influence of the Grimoire, you can expect this storyline to have some sort of evil intervention in the Netflix adaptation. Juste Belmont. A man often confronts his life's greatest troubles moments before his impending death. He spends much of his life struggling for the sake of others, living through torment that he knows he should let go of, but doesn't because of his own pride. Once that pride is shattered and he sees his own misery, that same man can rise up and meet his death with dignity instead of just running away from it, and that's what we foresee happening with Juste Belmont. Juste was an isolated old man who had given up on the fight when Richter accidentally found him. Through his grandson, he regained his magic, regained his purpose in life, and now he's out there doing the last thing Tera asked him to do with her human heart, protecting Maria like his own. Juste has decided to stay by Maria's side for as long as it takes, but his character serves no further purpose in the story. He was the strongest Belmont sorcerer until Richter overtook him, and he promised his dead wife Liddy that this was his last monster hunt, and, well, he won. Juste has done pretty much everything he thought he would do, and some things he never thought he would do, like reconnecting with his family. So, the only future we see for him is death, and we think it might just be Tera who kills him. He is the one who picked up on her deception to Maria as soon as he realized just what kind of magic she was teaching her daughter to harness, and he promised Tera he will keep her safe, if it's the last thing that he does. Well, I mean, that's foreshadowing if we've ever heard it, so Juste Belmont will die a valiant death protecting the girl he's come to see as his daughter. He never gave Richter's mother the time of day, so Maria will be filling that gaping hole. He'll protect her, raise her, and die for her if need be, because he's living on borrowed time already. The only thing Juste wants now is to reunite with Liddy in the afterlife, which he just might end up doing the next time Netflix drops more Castlevania content on our heads. Marvelous verdict! And with that, we've come to the end of this video. We think that what happened at the end of Season 2 is about as peaceful as things can get in the world of Nocturne, because if Castlevania 1 was any indication, it's all downhill from here. But that's just our 2 cents on the matter. What do you guys think about the fates of Richter and co? Let us know your predictions in the comments down below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Castlevania content. We'll see you guys in the next one, and until then, don't forget, protect your neck at all costs.